Today, our series on Lego modulars turns to the granddaddy of them all, Cafe Corner. The original Lego modular came out in 2007 and inspired the next 19 modulars, which we've been detailing in this series. And we're real excited to get finally to the original. This is the first time I've been able to build this set. I did not have it originally in 2007. I just recently parted this out, and we're going to talk more about that in a little bit. This was the first of the modulars, the first Lego set to be built on this 32 by 32 stud template, the first to be built 360 degrees, which basically means it's first to have a full back, and also the first that was built to have these individual floors easily come out so you can get into each of these floors and do some theming and creative play and whatever else you want to do. Again, so this is inspired what is now 20 modulars, and I'm real excited to dive into this build and share it with you. Again, this is something we parted out in the last few months. Real excited to share it with you. Let's go. So first we lay out all the pieces that we need for this build using the parts list that we got online. Now I probably spent about 125, maybe $150 on these parts, but that's very misleading. A lot of these parts I already had. If you had to buy every piece online, you're probably talking several $100s. In fact, if you try and buy this set in a box in a secondhand store, you're paying probably at least $1,000 right now. Now, we parted out a few of the other modulars and did some piece substitutions to really save a lot of money. Didn't do as much of that here. And that's because this being the original, I wanted it to be as close to the original build as possible. Obviously, one big change we did at the start here to match what we've done with the other modulars, we are building this on a MILS plate. That's why you're seeing those different colors of the plates inside. We are going to address that later. Now, this was a very fun build for me. A lot of it was nostalgia. You know, I've been a big fan of the modulars for a long time, and it was so fun to tackle the original finally. And one of the most fun things is to see how they did some of these really iconic parts of the build with some unique piece usage. For example, a bunch of snowshoes used here with a flexible tube, and we'll show you how putting these all together we create that fun white like sunburst type of shape that goes above the front door of this set. See, by anchoring those one by one round pieces on either end, what we do is we can bend this, and it takes a little bit of trial and error on my part to be able to get the bend to go the right way, but ultimately we do, and then we anchor this in place using those round light bluish gray pieces like I showed you, and voila, we have a very unique shape that is very eye-catching and a really good piece of architecture to anchor above the front door of this build. Now, another fun part of this build I want to point out, see this piece right here? This piece is worth about $5 in this color. I went ahead and got it because we only needed one, and I was trying hard to keep some of the iconic elements together with this set. Now, take a look at what we're doing here with that pipe, flex pipe that's you're seeing there. Now, we're going to see how we're going to use that blue arch and then a couple of other gray curve pieces. And it's borderline illegal build, but I'm going to show you what exactly is getting done here to create this fun little design element. Now, let me show you in a little more detail. We're going to use some different pieces here, different colors, but we're basically just taking that lime piece there, that those kind of curved pieces, and sticking them in the underside of the arch. And this works. They don't anchor in there very well, but they do. And then that we showed you that flexible pipe that was built into the design, that wedges those pieces into place so it's not going to move. Again, another fun design element that they worked into this set. Now we're about done with the ground floor of this set. Finally, we work on this iconic hotel sign made with some translucent red pieces. So you'll notice as we look at this finished ground floor, the inside of this is not furnished at all. And that is something that we've been revisiting on each Lego modular. The modern ones have all kinds of theming on the inside, but some of the originals from 2007 and the first few years don't have very much furniture. And that's something we're going to fix. But first, we're going to get the building built as it came in the instructions. And of course, I say that we're following the instructions, but actually, as we're starting the second floor here, I want to show you one of these substitutions that we made that I thought just made a whole lot of sense, both from a cost perspective and also, and it's just a better design perspective as we're diving into this set. So on the original build, those windows on the second floor, they were called for you to use a bunch of these 1x2x3s and set them like this, and this would be the window. I did not like that just because you can't put glass in there. It just leaves it open. I think that's kind of weird. Also, I didn't have enough of these pieces, but what I did have a bunch of were these standard 1x2x3 windows. So what I did was take a bunch of these. Instead of building the windows like this, I just put two of these back to back like this, and I was able to put glass in there, and it's got almost the exact same look. Now, these pieces are a little cheaper than the windows, but the fact that I was gonna have to order some, and I already have enough of these, ended up being good for me to go this route. So now the second floor is complete, and we place it on top, and now we're ready to start on the third floor of this structure. The third floor is quite different from the other floors in that there's not that much of the reddish brown needed. These walls are all tan, so it's a little bit different feel on this build. And then this kind of gets to some of the iconic design parts of this too, with those dark red sloped pieces on the outside. And I had to order most of those. I just had a couple, but it called for a lot. And that was probably the most expensive part of what I had to pick up piecewise. Now let's talk about these pink windows. You might have noticed these are supposed to be white in the original set. Supposed to be using this piece right here. Well, I miscounted when I was going through and figuring out what parts I needed. You need 5 of these, okay? And I thought I had 5, but I only have 3. So got down to building this and realized I was short. Well, I've got a bunch of these rose pink ones. So I decided to make this switch. I don't hate it. I think I might leave it for a couple reasons. Number one, I think it looks okay. Number two, this piece right here, this frame that you need for this building in white, these are about $6 a piece. Now I've got 3 of them. I need to get 2 more to be able to be consistent and have all 5 of these be the same color. But that'd be $12 to invest. And I'm going to think about it some more. But again, the pink is not bothering me, but I'd love to hear what you guys think about it. And here's something else I had to do on this floor to avoid doing a substitution. Notice right here, it's right there. That is supposed to be, you can see it on this side, supposed to have one of these there, but we ran out. Here's my bin of those 2x2 corners. I needed 4 of them in tan. Thought for sure I had it, but combed through this whole thing and not a single one. And it's an invisible spot. Really can't substitute a different color or a different piece. So instead, we're going to steal one from a set we've got laying around. Look over here. I bet this guy has what we need. All right, we're going to pop off his skull here. I think underneath here is what we'll need. Yes, this 2x2 corner piece. So we pop it off and we pop it onto the side of the cafe corner like we wanted. And boom, there we go. So now that we have the building complete,
Now it's time to go back and revisit some of the interiors and add some of the theming that we talked about.
So I think for the ground floor, we need to lean into the cafe theming because it is called Cafe Corner. So we're going to make ourselves a little cafe stand here. You know, this would go back against the wall like this. And then we've got, I was thinking about trying to do something a little dynamic. And maybe, I think maybe we'll have this sit kind of diagonal, kind of like that. I think that's going to be, that makes good use of the space, I think. Now I want to show you what I'm going to do for this refrigerator in the back here. You know, put stuff in there. I've built a few of these things. It doesn't look like much, but put those, you know, this Technic, and then a couple of these brackets here, and it creates a little shelf that's going to fit stuff perfectly like that. So we're going to see how that comes together. And then we have, you know, leaning into some of the yellow theming, we got just a couple little tables and some little chairs. So we're going to work on that. Also, I want to put there's no door in the back here, which is a standard for most modulars. So we're going to rip that up and put a door right there. And the other thing we're going to do is we're really going to tear this up because there's a lot of dead space underneath this stairwell. And I think something that most modulars have that I think every coffee shop probably needs, put ourselves a little bathroom underneath the stairs. To do this right, we're essentially tearing up the whole building, taking that back wall and that side wall out completely. Same with the stairwell, getting down to the guts and just rebuilding from scratch. Really liked how this kitchen and counter area came together, and especially being able to figure out how to get the counter to sit in here diagonally like this. Worked out pretty well, I thought. Now we focus on rebuilding that back wall behind the counter, and I was really happy too with how this turned out, especially that kind of makeshift refrigerator there. Now we go over and look at that stairwell, and this turned out to be a little trickier than I thought it would be. Again, rebuilding it from scratch and making it a couple of studs tighter. You can see here on from this angle, we moved those stairs over against the back wall. This allowed us to open up a little bit more space in the main cafe area. And in keeping with the modular theme, we can take that little panel off the top of the stairs and access this new bathroom that we've created. And now that the structure is pretty well in place, we go back to finishing the cafe area. Early modulars like this one didn't really have a finished floor. So that was a focus we wanted to have here, is adding a nice tile floor and some furniture. And I think it turned out pretty well. But now the ground floor is done, let's turn our attention to the next floor. And I think for theming, we need to lean into that big hotel sign that's hanging on the front. Before we get to the theme, though, let's look at some structural updates to this floor. We moved the stairs closer to the wall. That opened up a couple studs of space. And here's why we needed that space. We created 2 hotel rooms here. See, people come up the stairs. There's doors to get in. Here's one hotel room with adjoining bathroom. And here's a second little room with another adjoining bathroom. And we've also created some furniture. There's a bed for that room, and then also built this little piece of bedroom furniture, which is going to go right there. And then we have the same thing, although it's a little bit smaller bed because it's a different kind of space that fits in there, along with a similar little drawer. So yes, we have redone the second floor of the cafe corner and actually made it a hotel with a couple of rooms. And now the top floor. First, rebuild it so the stairwell was a lot narrower. Again, to match what we did on the bottom 2 floors, and also just open up a little bit more floor space. Thinking about a theme for this floor. We could do more hotel rooms, but I'm wondering about doing something different. Actually, I think this top floor is going to be a perfect spot for a speakeasy. And I created a bar for a different build that I've torn down, but I repurposing some things here, able to adjust it a little bit, but you can see here building the bar, and then there's the bar back that's going up there, and a bunch of, stuff that you would see behind a bar, and then there's a top shelf, and you're going to see a bunch of glasses get put across there. Leaned into black and dark green for the color scheme. I thought those really went well together and accentuated some of the brown and the dark brown that we used around the bar. Also decided to go through on this inside and eliminate all of the medium blue from the walls. It was just kind of a we got a lot of colors going on here, so I think that that was just a little bit too much. So just replacing it and making it all tan. And now we're going to add some character, a bunch of stuff on the walls, make it look more like a speakeasy. And then we got a little spot over here in the corner. How about a little arcade game? I was really happy with how this all came together with the speakeasy, this arcade game. I think just a perfect thing to put on the top floor of this building. And there we have it, completed cafe corner. Exterior is pretty much untouched. We did put it on a MILS plate, and we do have those pink frames on the windows. But other than that, this pretty much stayed true to the original on the exterior. But the interior is completely updated with a speakeasy on the top floor, and then again leaning into the hotel sign, we've got a couple hotel rooms there on the second level, and then here on the ground floor an actual cafe. I'm real happy with how this turned out, but I would love to hear from you guys about all of these updates. And with that, we have completed all 20 of the Lego modulars dating back to 2007. Real excited to have all of these completed and have the full set. We converted each of these to a MILS plate, and also each of them we did varying degrees of design upgrades and other cosmetic changes. So I hope you're following along. Our next step now is going to be taking all these buildings, adding some roads, and designing ourselves a new Lego city. Thanks for following along.